In front of you is a ballistic missile composed of 5 parts, and each of these parts has its own specific function. But before we explain these parts, we first need to understand why it is called ballistic and what the term ballistic actually means. The word ballistic refers to projectiles, objects that travel through the air and rely primarily on an initial force to move, like throwing a ball or a stone. Therefore, ballistic missiles behave similarly to this ball in front of you. The distance they travel depends directly on the strength of the initial throw, and there must be an angle to that throw. You cannot throw it straight up, or it will simply fall back to the same place. Now, let's go back to the 5 parts, starting from the left. The first part is the largest engine, which provides the initial thrust. This thrust gives the missile a very high initial speed, making the launch extremely powerful. It must be powerful because the most important feature of anything ballistic is that the initial push is strong. It is what allows it to reach a greater distance. Although there are 2 additional engines, they are not as powerful as the first one. For this exact reason, it is called ballistic, because it relies on that initial boost rather than continuous flight. As for how this engine works, it operates according to Newton's third law, which states, "For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction." The engine expels gas at a very high speed backward, and according to this law, the missile is pushed forward with the same force but in the opposite direction. The second part is the second engine, also known as the booster. Its role is to provide a very strong thrust during launch, immediately after ignition, not after the missile has left the atmosphere. You might wonder why it activates so early when the first thrust is already very powerful. The reason is that the most difficult phase of the missile's journey is the launch itself. At this moment, the missile's mass is at its maximum due to being fully loaded with fuel. In fact, fuel can account for more than 80% of the missile's total mass. Additionally, the missile is affected by air resistance, especially in the lower atmosphere where the air is much denser. The third stage represents the third and final engine. This engine provides the last boost after the missile has already ascended into the upper atmosphere. At this stage, a large engine is no longer necessary because air resistance is much lower than it was at lower altitudes. Therefore, this engine is relatively simple and delivers a final boost before completing its role. The fourth part can be considered the brain of the missile. Its job is to guide the missile to its target by converting random motion into a calculated trajectory. This is done by a microprocessor located in this section, which compares the current path with the planned trajectory and continuously corrects it to ensure the missile reaches its target accurately. All the previous parts serve one main purpose: delivering the final part to the target. This fifth part contains the explosives and represents the core payload of the missile. As for its shape, it is conical, and the reason for this is to reduce the shock when the missile re-enters the atmosphere. Finally, why do the missile's parts separate? Once each engine runs out of fuel, it detaches from the main body because it becomes dead weight, adding mass without providing any benefit. This is why the missile discards the first engine, then the second, and then the third. The goal is to reduce weight and increase efficiency, allowing the missile to deliver its payload to the target in the most effective way possible.